Good evening. Today we are going back to the roots of this channel and doing some more drum and bass. Two titans of the UK music industry, Chase and Status and Stormzy. What do they both have in common? They have had me feature in their music videos. Here I am in Vossi Bop. Here I am in Program. You can now refer to me as Actor. Let's get into it.
Pussy by himself, he's battle with his friends. Oh, you man are so insecure, man, it's a joke. I need a ball in the York, cause I'm the goal. If you believe in your source, then raise a toast. These are some genius fools, so make the most. Oh, you man are so insecure, man, it's a joke. I need a ball in the York, cause I'm the goal. If you believe in your source, then raise a toast. These are some genius fools, so make the most.
Right, let's listen from the top.
Ride them up again, ride it up again. Had them up before, I have them up again. Fake brothers, man, you man, them up pretend. Yeah. Pussy by himself, he's battle with his friends. Oh, you man are so insecure, man, it's a joke. I need a ball in the York, cause I'm the goal. If you believe in your source, then raise a toast. These are some genius fools, so make the most. Oh, you man are so insecure, man, it's a joke. I need a ball in the York, cause I'm the goal. If you believe in your source, then raise a toast. These are some genius fools, so make the most.
Alright, let's get into it. So this is pretty much a rip-off of Backbone, but it's the sound design that I want to show you guys. Let's start off with the little build.
Ride them up again, ride it up again. Had them up before, I have them up again.
So in the build, we just start with some 4 to the floor kicks that double and then double again. And then we have our claps doing a very similar thing. And then we have this little drum fill, I guess. Our kicks go back to 4 on the floor. And then we have these little hi-hat / rides on the offbeat. So I've just used some closed hats there and then a few different live ride samples just to give it a little bit more life. So this first brass stab, 2 saw waves and a sub. Sub is 1 octave down on a sine wave. The first oscillator is 2 octaves down. Second oscillator is 2 octaves down and 7 semitones up. And they're both on 16 unison. So that unison makes it sound really massive. And then we have this envelope that's working on all of these different parameters here. So normally I would use that on the LFO, but you can do it on an envelope at the same time. So this is just creating the shape of the sound effectively. So we've got an attack at 16 so it doesn't hit instantly. So 116 just gives it a little bit more time to come in. And then as I normally do, I've put it on the level of all of these oscillators, added some variations. So I had it on the noise at first, but I've taken that off. And then I've got FM from sub on both of these oscillators. And this envelope is being affected by those as well. And then we've got some more processing. So same as I usually do, the same thing that is affecting all of these parameters, I will put on the drive. And then we have just a little bit more processing on there.
By himself, he's battle with his friends. Oh.
In classic Chase and Status, they quite often have a little clap before the drop. So that just helps us ease us into that drop. And then we've got a reverse crash leading into those claps.
Oh,
so without those.
Pussy by himself, he's battle with his friends. Oh, you man are so insecure, man.
And with.
Battle with his friends. Oh, you man are so insecure, man. It's a joke.
Helps add to the energy quite a lot. So as we're going into the drop, we have got a sub, which is just an M sub, and then just some distortion on there. We're on tube, pre, and we've taken the filter right down. And then on our 1, we have this brass stab coming back in. So the exact same patch as this one. And both of these are playing a D as we hit into our drop, and the same with these first wubs that we hear. So those little wubs, fairly simple, 2 sine waves, 1 3 octaves down, 1 1 octave down, and 7 semitones up. And then we've got this micro kick noise in analog. And then we have our LFO1, which is affecting the level of all of these. So similar to what we did with envelope 2 the last time. This is creating the shape for our sound. And sometimes I'll create that wub with the LFO, but it sounded better to me this time to do it just with MIDI because I could get more control on the sort of swing of these 3 notes. So we've got our first note is on the 1 and then our second 2 are slightly behind beat. So it's much easier to do that in MIDI than it was to do that as an LFO in Serum. A little bit of EQ and then a lot of distortion yet again, and then a bit of compression and then a bit of EQ as well down here. And then we've got our lead stabs. Again, pretty simple. We've got a sine wave and a saw wave. One is 3 octaves down, one is 1 octave down, 4 semitones up. So if I take the filter off and the distortion off of this, you can hear quite distinctly that it's those wavetables that are happening. So a very simple sound. And again, we've done the same here with the LFO. So the LFO is affecting this cutoff here and our filter. So the filter is just opening at the same rate as our levels are being pushed up. So it gives it that cohesive arc to that sound. So everything is sort of following this trajectory, going from 0 to 100 and then back down again. So we add that distortion back in, which does all the work. So without the distortion on 100% drive, 100% mix, instantly turns into a drum and bass classic sound. And I noticed in some of Chase and Status' songs, they do this weird sort of fill thing, which sounds a little bit like this. It's something that you wouldn't necessarily notice, but it just fills the gap in this little section here. And the best way that I found to make that kind of sound is, let me take this processing off. So what we have here is a sub. That is literally just a sub sine wave, 0 octaves, no processing on it. And then we add a white noise. So those two together. And then I've grouped them two. And then we put a distortion on there. So I've got a decapitator on drive at 8. And the sine wave and the noise together give it that sort of almost tremolo sound. That. So without the distortion and with. And if we took the white noise out, so you were only doing that with the sub and with distortion and with the white noise. Gives it that super crunched. So I've just grouped those two together, stuck a distortion on there, and then taken the lows out. I need a ball in the York, cause I'm the GOAT. If you believe in your source, then raise a toast. These are some genius fools, so make the most. The thing that Chase and Status are so good at is creating these little breaks in between the drops. So here, they don't carry on with the drum beat as it was in the first part of the drop. They'll sort of cut it out before the second section. So when that second section comes in, it's much more impactful. So we've taken out the drums, the claps, and the hi-hats here. We've just added a little bit of a kick rhythm. Some genius fools, so make the most. And then to ease us into it, I've got this little break. And then we do the same thing with the claps as we did before the drop. We have the clap and the reverse cymbal in there. And then they quite often change up the synth. So it's a similar melody, but they just change the sound. So we have a sub on direct out, 3 octaves down. Oscillator A is a square wave, 2 octaves down. And oscillator B is a triangle wave. And similar again, we're doing LFO1, which is affecting these levels and the cutoff. And here we've done a resonance as well. So let me take that distortion. Oh, I've put it on the distortion there as well. So take the distortion off and the filter. And then we add our filter. And then our distortion. So the distortion is always a thing that gives it that crunch that you find in a lot of drum and bass songs. So getting those 3 right, the LFO, making your shape, our filter, and then our distortion are the 3 fundamentals that will really make the sound pop. And then I've added a little reverb on there as well. Man, I'm so insecure, man, it's a joke. I need a ball in the York, cause I'm the GOAT. And then Backbone, they have this little meow. So I just made that with a couple of saw waves. Oscillator A is on 1 unison, oscillator B is on 2 unison. A little bit of hyperdimension, a little bit distortion, a little bit of chorus. And then we are just automating the pitch from 0.5 down to 0. And that's being bent 4 semitones. And I've got a bit of OTT, a bit of compression, and a room on there just to sort of set it back in the mix a little bit. So it's a little bit too forward. So with that room, just helped it sit back a little bit. Man, I'm so insecure, man, it's a joke. I need a ball in the York, cause I'm the GOAT. If you believe in your source, then raise a toast. These are some genius fools, so make the most. And then one more thing that Chase and Status often do is they'll have a really effective delay on their vocals.
Battle with his friends. Oh, you.
So I've got Timeless on here that's doing a delay of 350 milliseconds either side.
Battle with his friends. Oh, you man.
And one is slightly offset, so it feels super wide. So we've only got one instance of the echo playing because our feedback is at 0. So we only have this one echo playing. And then by slightly offsetting these two, it just helps it sort of feel really wide. So our vocal is effectively down the middle, and then the echo of the vocal is sort of wider, so it doesn't interact too much in the same space. And to help that get out of the way a little bit as well, I've got a compression sidechained to the vocal. So I've set up this audio effects rack where we have a dry channel here and then our wet channel here. So our echo is at 100% wet, and then we can control the volume of that echo with this volume here. And by setting this sidechain compression on the vocal to itself, it means that the echo gets out of the way of the original vocal. So the original vocal will play, and then when it stops, the echo will come up in volume. So it sort of doesn't overlap each other too much. And I've got a really slight reverb on there as well, just to help set it back in the mix a little bit. And I've got a little bit of a filter on there as well.
Oh, you man are so insecure, man. It's a joke.
So this is it dry.
Oh, you man are so insecure, man. It's a joke.
And this is the wet. And together.
Oh, you man are so insecure, man. It's a joke. I need a ball in the York, cause I'm the GOAT. Still the GOAT. If you believe in your source, then raise a toast. These are some genius thoughts, so make the most. Oh, you man are so insecure, man. It's a joke. I need a ball in the York, cause I'm the GOAT. Still the GOAT. If you believe in your source, then raise a toast. These are some genius thoughts, so make the most.
And there we have it. Chasing Status 2.0 on this channel. They are well deserved. What absolute legends. I do hope this has helped. And I know you guys like the sound design. So let me know if you want me to keep doing this kind of stuff. Thank you for watching. Love to your mothers.